Hello, everybody. So today I want to go over my spreadsheet. And this is my updated spreadsheet that I'm working on for my Patreon members. I'm working on version 3 right now. So I've come up with a new classification, and I'm going to call this trad health disruption, or disruption of healthcare in general, and direct to consumer healthcare, DTC, and kind of like, create a cloud with this category of stocks that are disrupting traditional, bloated, expensive healthcare as we know it. And you'll see this is very impressive what some of these companies are doing. I was particularly impressed studying GoodRX and what some of the things GoodRX do, as well as, say, even a Talkspace or a Teladoc, following in a way the HIMSS playbook, and now promoting itself as a without insurance partner. And I'll get into each of these stocks briefly and tell you what I think about them. When I look at a sector, and in this case I call it trad health, I want to think about the best. Which is the best in trad health disruption? Which is the best disruptor of traditional health? You know my pick. My pick is HIMSS. There's one company that is cheaper than HIMSS, which is LifeMD, but LifeMD does not have the pharmacy part. HIMSS has the pharmacy part. So all in all, I think it's equal. I think both companies are equally cheap because the potential of LifeMD is lower because you're not providing the prescriptions. But there's a lot of other interesting plays. So before I go for each of these plays in my spreadsheet, let me briefly tell you what I'm looking for, how I want to select the best stock in a sector. In this case, direct-to-consumer healthcare, traditional health disruption. I want high revenue growth, ideally above 30%, because debasement is happening. The US dollar is debasing at about 15% a year. They print 15% more dollars in the world each year. If you don't take in 15% more dollars each year, you are drowning. Let's not use the nominal numbers, let's use the real numbers. So I want close to 30%. Why? Because 30%, say over 5 years, that's 15% real. That's a 2x. 15% real return over a 5-year period is a 2x. I think it's a good target. I want a company that is a cash machine, and by that I mean I want high EBITDA. Why do I want high EBITDA? Because I don't want my company to go bankrupt anytime soon, and I want my company to be able to pay off its debt. As you'll see, some of these have quite a bit of debt. I want them to have the optionality to pay off the debt, so I want the cash to come in. So high EBITDA, and ideally rule of 40, and the rule of 40 is the economic profit, right, which I consider to be EBITDA margin, because of best proxy for cash flow, plus the growth rate. So I want the growth rate and the EBITDA margin, when you add it up together, I want that to exceed 40. This is how I kind of rate stocks, and I think if I have all of these three criteria, as far as the numbers goes, it's a good stock, and no investment advice, of course. But I also believe that it's even more important to understand about the business model. It begins with a business model, begins with a disruption story, begins with a product adoption story, and in healthcare, we are absolutely seeing a story of product adoption. We are absolutely, in my view, seeing a disruption of traditional healthcare to the point that sometimes I wonder if it would not be worth shorting some of that traditional sector, because they are siloed, they are bloated, they are not communicating between the different divisions, they are not able to offer. You'll see in the case of GoodRX, right, for $19, you can get a visit for a urinary tract infection, and you can get it prescribed to you, the drug, for $19, and then less than $10 to buy the drug. So that's a $29 journey, right? In the traditional healthcare sector, that scenario is costing your insurance $300 or $400 for that scenario. And so that's why the cheaper that copay that I talk about for HIMSS, it's actually likely applicable to, say, a GoodRX. Your prescription medication that your employer is paying for is becoming a whole lot less compelling when you start introducing a GoodRX into the mix. So let me get started. So the first company I want to talk about is LifeMD. I was covering LifeMD when it was in a single digit. I did not buy it. I made a mistake. I should have bought it, but it seemed like the story was not as compelling as HIMSS. And of course, HIMSS had a great performance too during that same period, and so I don't feel too bad. HIMSS is still up 200% over the past 52 weeks. But LifeMD is, in my view, it is a good story. The story of LifeMD is one of prescribers, providers on that website. We call them providers, right? HCPs, healthcare providers. They sign up on this platform, and people go on the platform and they say, oh, I want to have, some help with primary care. I want to have a primary care visit, or I want to discuss labs or whatever. And you go on LifeMD and you have clear pricing as to how much your doctor visit is going to cost. And maybe you get prescribed, a medication for some problem you may have. And that's where the relationship stops at LifeMD. Then they have a coupons program. They send you a coupon or they send you a prescription to your local pharmacy. But then you're out of the LifeMD network. So LifeMD is simply telehealth visits, mostly without insurance. And that is something that also Amazon is entering, and that also GoodRX is entering that field. Mostly without insurance, telehealth visits with providers, super cheap. That's what LifeMD is. It is a story that is going quite fast at 35% predicted growth over the next 12 months in terms of revenue. The gross margin is absolutely excellent, and of course it is. It is a platform. Platforms have excellent gross margins. EBITDA margin is going to shoot up more in the coming years, and this is a stock, when I ask the question, how much am I paying for that growth? I am paying next to nothing for that growth. It is the cheapest stock. Out of 120 stocks that I cover, analyze, it's the cheapest of them all at a 0.03, and it achieves the rule of 40 out of 43. So I find this company quite compelling. Of course, whether you talk about LifeMD or whether you talk about HIMSS, the market recently has associated these companies about GLP-1, and so for LifeMD, maybe it's the first roller coaster that it's on for the market. In the case of HIMSS is on its second roller coaster of the market, dismissing it, because HIMSS had the first roller coaster when it IPO'd, when they were associated as simply an ED company and nothing more. Of course, these companies, whether you're talking about LifeMD or HIMSS, they're comprehensive, medium to small issue providers of healthcare. Medium to small issue, comprehensive. And HIMSS is a little more entry-level issues than LifeMD. That makes sense. So LifeMD can handle things that HIMSS doesn't handle yet. For example, hormone replacement therapy. LifeMD can handle that. HIMSS, that's part of a business plan, but they're not there yet. HRT, if you're wondering, hormone replacement therapy, that's something like a testosterone, for example, which is very popular in some sectors. Anyways, so that's HIMSS. HIMSS for you is, again, very early in your health journey, very minor health issues like AD, like a little overweight, like you have anxiety, so minor stuff is what HIMSS does. And HIMSS, the difference is that you don't pay for a visit. The visit, you don't pay upfront. There's no upfront payment for a visit. You only pay with HIMSS if you are found to need the product. So if you are found, for example, let's take the example of ED. If you are found to qualify for ED, they will sell you their HIMSS, ED medication, and it's something that you'll discuss with a provider. And so you may go for a brand, like you may go for Viagra, or you may go for just a generic Tadalafil, for example, or you may go for the HIMSS branded compounded product, which is what they try to push. And so for example, they have their hard mints, as they call it. It's a generic drug that has been compounded in there, and you would get that prescribed. And of course, HIMSS is trying to move most of their subscribers to these generic drugs. But the point of HIMSS is an e-doctor plus an e-pharmacy, And it's a special e-doctor, of course, because it's a virtual visit. You see it in 24 hours, and you don't get charged for it. And you don't get charged if you don't get prescribed. If you're not found to have an issue, you don't get charged. So that right there is an innovative business model right there. Because in traditional healthcare, if you go see the provider and the provider says you have no issue, you get charged, right? So you have innovation on the e-doctor side, and you have innovation on the e-prescription, the e-pharmacy side, where you're going to get a custom medication. Many of the new medications that HIMSS is releasing are custom medications, and that's important, of course, because you can customize it to your weight. You can put multiple issues that you may need treated. You can put it into one pill, so you get better treatment adherence. And of course, HIMSS achieves all of that without insurance, and the fact that there is no insurance makes it way less confusing for the customer. And the customer knows up front how much they're going to get charged, which is also part of the business model innovation that I think HIMSS was the first one to figure out, and that a lot of these companies are figuring out too, which is a lot of people are just fine paying out of pocket if it means avoiding the bloated insurance system. I mean, if you live in the US, have you ever tried logging in on Blue Cross Blue Shield? Like seriously, it's so archaic. You can't understand a single thing. You gotta know the codes. You gotta type the codes. I tried one time knowing how much it would cost me to have a physical. I spent 30 minutes on the phone, and I didn't know. I had to walk up to the clinic and find out it was $176, and I was gonna get charged $176 unless my doctor changed that in their system to make it an annual physical, which then my insurance would cover. And I was still wondering. Anyways, the whole system is just extremely bloated in legacy. And of course, if you are later in your health journey than me, like if you're listening to this and you say you're in your 60s, your 70s, you're very familiar with it, you don't find it difficult. But you may not find it difficult because you've gone through the hoops of going through the hoops the first time and understanding how it works the first time. I can tell you, someone who has just minor issues, in my view, they're just not going to get through hoops. They're just not going to get their physical. They're just not going to get their health addressed because it's a hassle and life happens. These companies make it very easy. And HIMSS is perhaps the king of making it super easy. LifeMD also makes it easy. Then I want to thank my Patreon community for suggesting Talkspace in the Discord. They will recognize themselves to recognize Talkspace in the Discord. Thank you. That was a very, very good recommendation. I had no idea this one existed. And I will tell you, this one is cheap. The problem, of course, is that they are quote-unquote pre-economic profit, in my view. I mean, it's negative EBITDA. Now, I don't have a problem buying a company with negative EBITDA, but it requires a little more digging if I were to invest in this company. And of course, the growth is not there, so I'm not going to dig because the growth is only 24% for Talkspace. But what is Talkspace? Let me show you here. They only specialize on therapy and licensed therapists and talking to therapists. There are 45-minute visits to therapists, and so to give you like a common example of therapy, and therapy is very popular in the U.S. I can tell you that. I've known a lot of people who love therapy. For example, I don't know. Let's say you're fighting with your spouse, right? Well, you can do couples therapy. And maybe you book 4 sessions of couples therapy, and then maybe after the therapy, you're not fighting anymore, and life is great, right? Or it could be teenagers, it could be anything. It could be individual. Anyways, it could be issues with your parents, or whatever. It's actually a popular thing in the US. I don't know how popular it is in other countries. I know it's very popular in the US. Anyways, the point is, you can get that digitally. You don't need a physical therapist practice anymore. You can just do everything digitally. Period. And of course, this is out-of-pocket pay, right? You pay for this out-of-pocket, and it's very clear pricing. And they also do medication for the drugs that relate to what they treat. And so that's Talkspace for you. One thing I'll say about Talkspace is they have a partnership with Amazon. And so their revenue growth could actually become a little explosive if the partnership with Amazon ends up sending them a lot of customers their way. So that's an interesting company. The growth's not there yet for me. And of course, HIMSS offers similar treatments as far as prescribing, say, anxiety medication. LifeMD offers same things for anxiety, and especially Teladoc. Teladoc's BetterHelp division is a direct competitor to this. And I'll talk about Teladoc in a second. Let me now talk about GoodRX. So GoodRX, I don't know if you know this, but GoodRX is extremely popular in the US among physicians. Believe me, my significant other is a physician, and she tells me all the time that GoodRX is something like 75% of the conversation she has whenever a patient asks for the cost of a drug. She pulls the GoodRX app and she's like, okay, this is how much it costs. It looks like it's going to be the cheapest at Kroger for you. You might want to go get it at Kroger because look, it's only $9. It's 97% off at Kroger. Go get the prescription at Kroger. That's what GoodRX is. GoodRx is this partnership that they've passed with American chains of pharmacies all over. And they say they have something like 75% of the pharmacies that they've passed a partnership with, and it's a coupon with a group number, as they call it. And if you understand legacy insurance, you know how it works. And they show you this coupon, and it looks like an insurance card, but it's not an insurance card. It looks like an RX prescriptions insurance card. It's not. It's a GoodRx card. You show the GoodRx card, you get the discount on the app, on the piece of paper. And this is quite special, actually, because yet again, it negates the need. I mean, you know, this is oftentimes how you can get it cheaper than your insurance, because your insurance card is going to look like a GoodRx coupon that you pull up on your phone, and sometimes it is much cheaper to just go for GoodRx than to go for your insurance, which is crazy. I mean, I think you're going to have a lot of disruption on insurance because people are catching on to that. And I cannot tell you how many times when I look up various medications, it is cheaper on GoodRx. And in fact, this is also true that if you look up, say, a lot of the drugs that are sold by HIMSS, they are cheaper on GoodRx. They are usually cheaper on GoodRx with a GoodRx coupon than, say, they would be on HIMSS. That's why HIMSS is trying to go through the personalized aspect. But the problem with GoodRx is that, of course, you need a prescription from a doctor in the real world. You need a doctor in the real world to give you a prescription in order for you to be able to use GoodRx. So what has GoodRx done? Well, they've launched this thing called GoodRx Gold. Let me show you GoodRx Gold. So GoodRx Gold is this system where you can get a lot of the things prescribed to you through a so it's a $19 a month subscription. It's a subscription. I think the subscription is actually $10 a month. But then you can get licensed healthcare provider visits starting at $19 a month. No, $90 a visit. I'm sorry, there's a landscaper outside. Let me pause the video a second. Okay, so as I was saying, GoodRx Gold, I think it's quite interesting. They have implemented this program where, of course, you get the prescription drugs through the GoodRx coupons, and you can get this from any pharmacy in your area. So you're leveraging the physical world that is already built out. But GoodRx now offers telehealth visits, just like LifeMD, just like HIMSS, just like Talkspace, just like Teladoc. They offer telehealth visit, and it's starting at $19 for GoodRx Gold, and it's for things like prescription refills, things like easy visits, such as, I don't know, the example they give is a UTI infection. And so you can't get to this cheap cost with a commercial insurance. Like I don't think it's ever possible to get to this cheap cost with a commercial insurance. Your employer is going to be paying hundreds of dollars for have something even close to that. So there is a major disruption happening in healthcare. And GoodRX looks like an interesting play, although it is a more mature company, clearly, because they have up to 500,000 prescriptions a year out of GoodRX. So prescribers, more than 500,000 prescribers, providers use GoodRX or recommend GoodRX to their customers each year, to their patients each year. So that's a big business right here. Okay, let me move on to Teladoc. So Teladoc, of course, the story of Teladoc is they are quote unquote the fallen hero. They are also the legacy company in this bunch. I mean, HIMSS, of course, was founded in 2016, but if you look at GoodRX, it was 2011. If you look at Teladoc, it was 2002, Teladoc. So Teladoc is kind of a legacy player, and it is the player that partner with insurance. And because they partner with the insurance, and because they get a lot of their business through accepting insurance, I think that's part of a reason why they're only predicted to grow at 2%, and why they grow so slowly, and why they fare so poorly in my spreadsheet, because you got no growth, because you are working with traditional health insurance companies who take forever. And my guess is that they know that, because now that you go on Teladoc, and I had not analyzed Teladoc in a year, now that you go on Teladoc, you have the same thing as everybody else now. You have clear pricing. Now. Nutrition, $89 a visit. Dermatology, $89 a visit. Mental health, $119 a visit. General medical visits without insurance, 24/7, $89. $89. I was talking about that with my significant other. Her clinic for a general, she's an internal medicine specialist. Her clinic charges between $178 to up to $490 something, and that depends on what is discussed in the clinic. Some visits are easier than others, right? So depending on the visit, you're between a 2x in the best case scenario, or a 5-6x cheaper in the worst case scenario compared to what you would have in the real world. And of course, to know the prices, you wouldn't know those prices in the real world. You would have a very hard time finding out those prices in the real world. And Gen Z, they want to know how much they're going to get charged, right? They don't want to call Blue Cross Blue Shield to figure out how much they're going to get charged and how much they're going to get reimbursed. This is why I think putting your pricing out is triggering a whole lot of sales. If you also know anything about this business, there's a part of his business, these online visits, like where you pay $89, say, for a visit. You have a lot of people who actually will go to the US from internationally. They'll just do an online visit from a country on the other side of the world, and they'll pay $89 because in this system you can get a doctor visit within 24 hours, and you get a doctor that may be very qualified. And so even from that standpoint, it's a business that can scale internationally. This information I'm telling you is from LifeMD's conference call, where we were talking about how they have a lot of people coming from abroad, doing doctor visit from abroad, because it turns out the health system in their country, it takes 3-4 months to see a doctor, and they may not have a telehealth visit, and they may not have an out-of-pocket pay visit. $89 to me is a fairly cheap price if you truly think about it, compared to what you pay for health insurance at your employer. And I'll make a video about this about that at some point. Talking about really the cost of healthcare insurance, what we pay versus what we get for what we pay. And I wonder where the money is going. I really, really do. And I'll make a video about that. Anyways, the last stock that I want to talk about is WELL. It's WELL. So it's a Canadian company. It has been recommended by my viewers a few times. Typically, it's written as Welto because it's a Canadian company on the Toronto Stock Exchange. So so the Canadian version of that is WELL.TO if you're looking at the Canadian Stock Exchange. So this company, again, the numbers are pretty good. If you look at a 0.19 here, that's high, but that's pretty good. I must say I'm in the start of my analysis for this company, but it's most of the business comes with their ecosystem, and so they have doctors subscribing to the ecosystem to be part of the ecosystem, and so it's a digital first ecosystem. This is a digital tech company for doctors. 98% of the revenue is recurring, coming from the doctors who are part of this digital tech company. I'm new to it. I literally just started to analyze it. And they're predicted to grow at quite high numbers, and their cash flow is predicted to also increase quite a bit. So, and they just entered the United States, and they've been doing buybacks. They've had quite a bit of buybacks, so we're not seeing as much share dilution on that one. So this is still early on, but I'm sure if you watch this video, some of you will know about Welto. So feel free to tell me in the comment section what you think about that one. But it's more of a tech play in healthcare and disrupting healthcare and clinics. So this is all I have to say about Welto. It's a new stock for me. I have not bought it. Obviously, I do not. The only stock that I own out of all of this is HIMSS. HIMSS is the only stock that I own. The only stock that sometimes I think about owning is LifeMD, aside from HIMSS. But my position is so big in HIMSS. So in my view, HIMSS remains the best play out of all of these. But I think there's also a general takeaway of this video to be made, which is healthcare is going to change a lot. Traditional healthcare is going to be disrupted. It is going to cost a fraction of today's cost, an absolute fraction of today's cost, and it's a very positive development, if you ask me, that health can be accessible so easily. I think it's a very positive development. So, not positive for hospitals disguised as asset managers. If you're an asset manager disguised as a hospital, then you got some disruption coming your way. But I would argue that this is turning the customers, turning the patients into customers, and doing it in a way where you still have the doctor who is absolutely sovereign, and you still have the doctor who acts as a wall. It's not like you can just order the drug. You have to see the doctor first. And so I think they're doing it the right way. I look forward to seeing the disruption in this space develop further, and this is going to be an exciting 10 years or more, right? So anyways, thank you so much for watching. This was not investment advice, not financial advice, not health advice. This is just entertainment. Please like, please subscribe. Have a wonderful day.